Okay, once again, good morning, everyone.
Good morning, sir. Morning, Bob.
Um, just like this course is about quantitative techniques and research methods. That's ENS 707. Let me share the course content so that we can go through quickly together. Can you see the course content?
Not yet.
No, sir, we can't.
How about now?
Yes, it's off now.
Still sharing.
Okay, that's fine. So under quantitative techniques and research methods, first we'll be looking at some analytical techniques for planning data. That's descriptive and exploratory methods. Next, we'll look at functions and planning forecasts. We'll take particular examples of continuous and discontinuous functions. Thereafter, we'll proceed to looking at population projection techniques. Population projection techniques. Then we'll look at spatial interaction models. Next will be cohort survival method and related demographic techniques. Then we'll look at basic statistics for planning research. Next will be research design and methodology. Research design and methodology. Thereafter, we'll look at sources of information / data in planning. We'll proceed from there to sampling concepts, sampling techniques, sampling concept, the concepts and the techniques. Then we'll look at data collection methods. Then we'll look at statistical analysis and interpretation. When we analyze our statistical data, we interpret it so that the end users can make meaning out of it. The end users can make meaning out of our computation. And under this statistical analysis, we'll be looking at regression analysis, analysis of variance, factor analysis, and related techniques. Thereafter, we'll review all our research techniques and practice in Nigeria with planning or cost examples. So basically, that's what we'll be looking at. So without waste of time, I would want to share this course outline with you. I think, who is the class rep? Who is the class representative?
So I'm here.
And so what you do for me is that
Yes,
you
sir.
create our WhatsApp platform so that I'll be my assignments and some problems that will not be too clear. If I solve quickly with my hand, I can just drop it on the WhatsApp there because I'll be dropping a lot of things there so that those of you who are not following in class will have the opportunity of going through what I have solved and post on the platform. So you do that for me so that even this course outline and the first course material I'll post on that platform just for the purpose of ENS 707 only. Is that okay? So, oh, what's covering our phone like this? Okay, fine. Can you see my screen now?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. So, this is the first lecture for this for today, this morning session, and it's on lecture. This is lecture notes on ENS 707. Just like I told you earlier on, the title of this course is quantitative techniques and research methods. So it's by Dr. Timothy Tefa Shezwa, Department of Mathematics, Joseph Sawan Taka University. So we are dealing with quantitative, we're looking, the course is about quantitative techniques and research. So firstly, we'll look at quantitative techniques. You need to know what quantitative techniques are. You need to know what is research, and you need to know what are research methods. Once again, we'll go through what are quantitative techniques. After quantitative techniques, we'll look at just research alone. What is research? The qualities, the characteristics. Thereafter, we'll look at research methods. So, and this course is to be handled by my humble self, Dr. Timothy Tefa Shezwa, Department of Mathematics, Joseph Awantaka University, Macaulay. So, what are research methods? These are techniques involve These techniques involve the use of numerical data, models, and algorithms to derive insight, make predictions, optimize decision making. And examples of these quantitative techniques are regression analysis, linear programming techniques, pre simulation modeling, time series analysis, and optimization algorithm. So, any techniques that you will deploy when you solve when you solve certain problem, the results you are getting, if you can make insight, derive some reasonable conclusion, you derive some reasonable insights that can make meaning to the people on the street. Sorry, my network went bad. Let me share my screen again. Can you see my screen now?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
we can. Yes.
So, fine. So just like I was saying before the network went bad, I said these techniques involve the use of numerical data, models, and algorithms to derive insights, make predictions, and optimize decision making. And a quick example of quantitative techniques include regression analysis, linear programming techniques, decision trees, population modeling, time series analysis, optimization algorithms, and many other approaches that you could deploy to analyze data, make useful insights from this data you've analyzed. These techniques are called quantitative. Now, what is a research? A research is the careful consideration of study regarding a particular concern or research problem using scientific methods. So any study you want to perform, any study you want to carry out, any study that you are, carefully looking at using a scientific approach for a research. Now, according to an American sociologist, Robert, he described research as thematic inquiry to describe, explain, predict, and control observed phenomena. And this often involves, deductive and inductive methods. What is deductive and inductive method? Here's a brief meaning of deductive and inductive method. Deductive method generally is from top to bottom. What do we mean by top to bottom? Here, you start with a general rule of theory and then apply it to specific case. See what will happen. And an example of this include if you have, for instance, we look at math stroke logic. The rule is all even numbers are divisible by 2. Now, the case we're looking at is that 18 is an even number. And the conclusion is that 18 is divisible by 2. So, this is an example of deductive reasoning. Another example is that if a student submits after the deadline, marks are reduced. So, John submitted after the deadline. The conclusion is that John's mark will be reduced. So you start from a theory or a general perception, then you narrow it down to conclusion. Now, for you can equally look at another scenario, science hypothesis. And the theory here is fertilizer X. It could be NPK, it could be 15, 15, 30, it could be any other type of fertilizer. So fertilizer X increases plant height. That's the general theory. That's the general perception that a particular fertilizer named X increases plant height. So what's the prediction here? The prediction here is that if I apply fertilizer X to a group of plants, they will grow taller than the control group. Then you run the experiment to confirm or reject the prediction. So these are examples of deductive methods. So how about inductive? For inductive, here you begin with a specific observation or data, notice the pattern, and then form a general rule or building. The conclusion is likely, not 100% guaranteed, because new observation. An example quickly is that look at daily observation. One observation, you may say 10 schools for 10 school days. For 10 school days, a bus arrived 7:10 a.m. What is the generalization here? The bus usually arrives around 7:10 a.m. That's the generalization. So our specific here is, the observation here is that for 10 school days, the bus arrived 7:10 a.m. Then what is our generalization? The idea is that 10 a.m. At 7:10 a.m., 7:10 a.m. The bus usually arrives around 7:10 a.m. So that could be our generalization. Now, you can look at research survey. In a survey, most students who use weekly practice tests improve their test scores. That's the observation. We observe that in a survey, most students who used this weekly practice test improve their scores. The generalization would be that weekly practice tests may improve performance. And it's true, because there's no way I'll be practicing and someone who is not practicing will do better than somebody who is practicing. So this observation is very, very true, because in a survey, most students who use weekly practice tests improve their score. And you can just from there generalize your conclusion by saying that weekly practice tests may improve performance. So for the health, you take your time to go through the data of health. Now, what are the characteristics of a research? What are the characteristics of research? You know, this research you perform, this research you carry out has some certain characteristics. And one of them is that a good research follows a systematic approach to capture accurate data. Researchers need to practice ethics and a code of conduct while making observations and conclusions. A very good research starts with a system. If you want to carry out a research, for example, now, one of the first things to do is that you have to identify what you want to work on. When you identify what, then you maybe as a preliminary beginning, you need your paper, you need biro, you need some necessary software. Thereafter, you move to the field, get your data. When you get your data, you come back from the field, you analyze data using regression analysis. Maybe you use factor analysis, over you use the test, large and small samples. Then thereafter, you analyze your data, you get results, you interpret this result to the lay people that will be using it. Thereafter, you conclude. So this first characteristics of a research is because it has to follow a systematic. If this research does not follow a systematic approach, it's not a research. The next is the analysis is based on logical reasoning and involves both inductive and deductive. I explained to you what is inductive and deductive method. It has to follow a certain logical reasoning so that you can draw conclusion. I give an example for the inductive reasoning. We said those who for the deductive first, we're saying that those who do this weekly practice test improve their performance. And in the other instance, we're saying that in 10 days for consistency, in 10 days, the bus that we are conveying learners to school arrive around 7:10 a.m. The general conclusion would be that the bus normally comes around 7:10 a.m. That will be the conclusion. So even in your research, these ideas have to be deployed because we see the pattern how your research is. Then you give a general conclusion. Give an example quickly again to drive my point. If you go to animal farm in North Core, we have a small animal farm there. We have where they have pigs, where they have rabbits, where they have bo- So just like I was saying before the network interrupted again, um, I was giving a specific example of animal farm, not Core Farm University. If you go to the farm to take weight of those rabbits, maybe there are 10 of them, and maybe you start with rabbit A. First day of rabbit A, the weight was 2 kg. Second day, the weight was 4 kg. The third day, the weight was 6 kg. The fourth day, the weight was 8 kg. And the fifth day, the weight was 10 kg. You see the increment of the weight of these rabbits is increasing by 2 kg per day, increasing by 2 kg per day, increasing by 2 kg per day. I'm going to conclude that even in the subsequent days, the weight increased by in the first day, the increment was 2 kg, second day 2 kg, third day 2 kg, fourth day 2 kg, fifth day 2 kg. So I'm going to conclude. I don't want to do it for the sixth and seventh day because I know the class of food I'm giving to those rabbits. So I'll conclude that their weights subsequently will be increasing by two in the sixth, seventh, and eighth day. So I'll give that general conclusion because I've seen the pattern, the the weights are following. So that's that for the second characteristic. I told you the first characteristic is that a good research has to follow a systematic approach. The second one is that the analysis is based on logical reasoning. You reason based on the observation you are observing on the field. The analysis based on logical reasoning and involves both inductive and deductive methods. Third, the written data and knowledge are derived from actual observation in natural settings. Fourth, there's an in-depth analysis of all data collected so that there are no anomalies associated with them. So the data you collect, there's data not that you sit in your house and then just no, that's not a good research. If you want to collect your data, see the instance I'm giving you, go to the field. If you are weight of animals at this point, actually go to the field, get this data. At the end of the day, your analysis, the analysis you are going to come up with, better analysis, and the result will be very, very useful to the end user. If you sit in your house and cook data from your house, you just sit down and write anything, your choice. I tell you, your result will be wrong, and your interpretation will be wrong, and the end users will not make good use of the result. So whatever the data you are collecting, ensure that let's read data from field. 5, it creates a path generating new questions. Existing data helps create more research opportunities. I give you an example quickly to drive my point home. The research you carry out, maybe you collected data on a particular direction. At the end of the day, there's no research that is entirely 100% perfect. There are some shortcomings in research. Your research should be in such a way that at the end of the day, it will create room for future research. Anybody coming up to make use of your research, look at some future paths conducting any other research, because every good research will give room for an opportunity to make progress thereafter your own research. A good research must have a recommendation. That's why at the end of every research, even in your undergraduate research, you concluded nicely, and of course, you give your recommendation. You say, in spite of the fact that this research is as good as the audience are doing it, however, we have some shortcomings in the research and we have made some recommendations. So those recommendations for the next researcher will come, pick it up just from there. So 6 is analytical and uses all available data so that there is no ambiguity in inferences. This I've explained. Your research has to be the way you collect your data, the way you perform your research has to follow a systematic, and you use all available data nicely that you get from the field. The no ambiguity, and your conclusion will be at the moment maybe today you go to the field, you collect data, the following day you went to the same place where you're collecting data, but maybe the third and the fourth day you can go there again, you just sat in your house. Maybe the first day you got 2 kg, this following day you got 4 kg, the third day you just sat in your house and fixed 5 kg, 7 kg. At the end of the day, there will be ambiguities. There will be, some inconsistency in your flow of your data, like the end result of the research. So 7, accuracy is one of the most critical aspects of your research. The information must be accurate and correct. For example, laboratories provide a controlled environment to collect data. Accuracy is measured in the instrument used, the version of instrument or tools, and the experiment's final result. Yes, if you go to physics laboratory or laboratory, there are some data you just have to take right in your. Those of you who are science students who have done titration, the end result has to just lab. When you perform your titrations, the end result recorded down. In the physics laboratory, you are doing all this more the simple experiments you can find in the physics. The result just has to be taken right here in the lab. can't sit in your house and not. So security is one of the most critical aspects of research which you must not tamper with so that we can have good results that the end users can make. Now, what are research methods? Can you hear me from your end?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes, sir. We can hear you, sir.
Fine, that's fine. What are research methods? So basically, research methods are ways of collecting. They are ways of collecting and analyzing. So if I ask you, what are research methods? Just simply tell me these are ways of collecting, analyzing data. And the common methods include you can take surveys, you can perform experiments in the laboratory, you can conduct one-on-one interview using phone to interview through observation. So in the whole, research methods are processes used to collect data. You can use this data to analyze current methods or procedure to find additional information. So uh, there are basically two types of research methods. Qualitative research method and we have quantitative research method. So quantitative research methods are involve using numbers to measure. Researchers can use statistical analysis to find connections and meaning in the data. While qualitative research method involve exploring information and non-numerical data. These research methods also examine how people might connect meaning to their research experiences. So basically, we have two types of research methods, just like I told you, quantitative and qualitative research methods. So quantitative research methods deals with numbers, that's quantitative, and that informs the title of this course. It will say quantitative techniques and research methods. So we'll be dealing with a lot of numbers and statistics. Maybe as from afternoon, maybe as from the afternoon classes. So quantitative research deals with numbers. Quantitative, know the difference. So quantitative deals with deals with numbers and statistics. While qualitative research deals with words and meaning. Basically, these are the differences. Quantitative deals with numbers, statistics, while qualitative research deals with words and meaning. So you need to know between quantitative and uh, qualitative. Quantitative and qualitative. So quantitative methods allow you to systematically measure variables and test hypotheses, while qualitative methods allow you to explore concepts and experiences in more. So we're still going to break these quantitative methods into various types. We have types of quantitative methods include one, we have survey research. In survey research means collecting information about a group of people by asking them questions, analyzing the result. When you want to conduct a survey, you go out to the field. And when COVID-19 came, questionnaires were designed. Some people were going out asking questions. Have you heard about COVID-19 before? If you say yes, they will teach. If you say no, they will teach. What do you know the characteristics? Do you know the symptoms of COVID-19? Some persons will say no, some persons will say yes. These are questionnaires. These are surveys that you carry out in order to achieve a particular goal. So, survey research is collecting information about a group of people by asking them questions and analyzing the result. By the time you ask questions, by the time you carry out your survey, when you now sit with your group of uh, uh, colleagues that you are performing the research together, when you put sit together, you look at the responses. If majority says they've not known anything about COVID-19, that means people have to do a lot of work. You have to go to radio, you have to perform jingles to tell the populace that this is symptoms of COVID-19. If you see somebody that has a social traits, they have symptoms of things, keep social distancing, you now perform a huge advocacy so that populace can know more about. And that's the meaning of analyzing your results. Whatever response the result gives you, you sit there, analyze, and make. We have what we call descriptive research. Descriptive research is a research method describing the characteristics of the population or phenomena studied. So that's descriptive research. We have colorational research. Colorational research is a type of non-experimental research in which the researcher measures two variables and assesses statistical relationship between them with little or no effort to control external variable. For example, in regression analysis, you want to compare the scores between uh, two classes, class X and class Y. That is research. Those persons who are in education, you see, they keep comparing the relationship between this class and that class. They compare the performance between class A and class B in mathematics. These are colorational research. You want to know the relationship between A and class B. How is their performance like? How have they fared in Y? You look at special science and algebras. Maybe you call special science A, you call maths and algebras. You want to compare the performance between these two regression analysis, between two variables. In this case, special science will be variable A, and algebra will be variable B. That the type of research you conduct by comparing this scores is called colorational research. And we have types of qualitative methods include one-to-one interview. This one-to-one interview are interviews that are in person and occur between one interviewer and the interviewee. If you watch politics today, between Shehu and any other person who he's inviting is one-on-one interview. So, and that kind of one-on-one interview under the TT research. Next, we have focus group. A focus group is a research technique used to collect data interaction. The group comprises a small number of carefully selected people who discuss a given topic. Focus groups are used to identify and explore how people think and behave and how they throw light on how, why, what questions. So this focus group interview is different from the one-on-one interview. This one is you go to a community, you gather like 20 persons, and you ask questions. You go to another community, you gather like 15, 20 persons, you ask questions. Different from one-on-one interview. This one is a group interview. The interview you do group-wide, as you gather this group between 15, 20, 10, 15, provided there is more than one person, small one-on-one interview, we call it. And in this focus group lies under active. You need to be knowing this difference. There's what we call ethnographic study. Ethnography, study of people in their own environment through the use of methods such as participant observation, and face-to-face interviewing. You go to a particular environment to conduct interview. That's why they call it ethno group. That is a particular tribe, Igala, Igede, Doma. You are specific about the tribe. You go to the environment. You go to Oju. You are not specific about the place you are going. You are not generalizing the place you are going to. You are specific. You are going to Oju. Go to Oju. You are looking at the tribe like it's ethnographic studies. Next, we have test analysis. The test analysis is a process of using computers to read and understand human written text. Text analysis is the process of using computer systems to read and understand human written text for business. Then, in this case, relevant softwares are use software. Maybe you use MATLAB, Apple, Excel sheet, Mathematica, you use R, you use this other popular software apart from R. You use when I recall, I'll tell you, but majorly test analysis for some software. SPSS, good. SPSS. Deploy some software to handle text analysis. Case study. I think this one is very clear. And most of you, when you are doing a study, you say, how will I target now? You say, conducting a research on the performance of mathematics chemistry, a case study of a school A, zone B, zone C. You specify a case study of Makoni local government, a case study of my local government, case study of Otopo local government. You are specific in this case. So, case study. A case study is an in-depth study of one person or an event. The performance of mathematics. You now put column a case study of Makoni local government. Performance of mathematics, a case study of Benin State. Performance of mathematics, a case study of Nigeria. Performance of mathematics, case study of Africa. Performance of mathematics, a case study of West Africa. You are specific now. So it's a case study. It's a case study. Case study is an in-depth study of one person, group, or event. You can now, specific to what you are really looking at. What is statistical? What is data analysis? Why data analysis? Why is it important? Now, data analysis, simply put, is the process of discovering useful information by evaluating data. The name implies data analysis is the process of discovering useful information in data. This is done through a process of inspecting, cleaning, transforming, and modeling data using analytical statistics, which will be explored in detail further along the article. Why is statistical analysis important? Analyzing data effectively helps organizations to make business decisions. Nowadays, data is collected by businesses constantly through surveys, online tracking, online marketing, analytics, collected subscription, registration data, that is, you look at this newsletter, social media monitoring, among other methods. So data analysis is important in the sense that it is through data analysis that if, for example, you want to know the number of event centers we have in Benue State. Maybe you check the whole in zone A, we just have one. Zone B, we have one event center. In zone C, we just have one event center. So maybe at the end of the day, your statistical analysis, you will say that in the whole of Benue State, we have 3 event centers, which is not enough. And you now compare the number of persons wed. On Saturdays, people wed and do their reception church premises. It could be that event centers are not enough, or event centers are too expensive. You perform a statistical analysis and draw a conclusion so that we, the end users, can use it. Maybe at the end of the day, your recommendation would be that it's because we have few event centers and the prices are enormous. From your research, we'll be able to know that the prices are on. But I tell you, the moment event centers, let's say in zone A, they are like 20, zone B, they are 25, zone C, they are 30. You have various places to make the choices of where to go and do your reception. I tell you, the prices will go down. Uh, Eager to use these event centers for the reception, birthday receptions, and all that. So it is through your data collection. If you don't collect this data to the public that a few event centers we have, or we have enough event centers, the public will not know. So data collection, analysis of data, interpretation of that data is very important. Make informed decision. So what is the research design? Generally, research design is a plan. Your research question is a plan to answer your research question. You know, there's no good research you'll carry out without designing research. You have to think of what first. You just sit down and say, which research will I carry out? Which research will I carry out to do? You know, itemize. You'll be itemizing what you want. The research design is a plan for your research question. So a research method is a strategy used to implement that plan. A research method is a strategy to implement that your plan. So you have to perform a research design, then use statistical tool to best time. The first one, what are you set to do in your research, your first research design plan? You deploy the appropriate statistical tool for that question. That's why I said a research method is a strategy used to implement that. So research design methods, but they are closely related because good research design ensures that the data you obtain help you answer your research questions more effectively. Now, this research design itself, what is it? Research design is the framework of research methods and techniques chosen by a researcher to conduct. The design allows researchers to sharpen the research methods for the subject matter and set up their processes. So, creating a research topic explains the type of research and its subtype. Now, there are 3 main types of designs for research. There are 3 main types of designs for research. 1, you conduct data collection. 2, you do some measurements. And 3, you analyze the data. This is very true because the very first thing you do is collect data. Data collection is very, very key to a very successful research output. You collect data, measurements, then you analyze your data. that when you analyze this data, you now draw reasonable conclusions. You draw reasonable conclusions that the end users can make use of your data. So the research problem, an organization determine the design. You don't just carry out research. You don't just design research. Be an existing problem that will prompt you to design your research problem. So the design phase of a study determines which tools to use and how they are used. For example, if your sample is less 30, you know the type of tool you are going to use. If it's a large sample, you know the type of, and if it's a small sample, you know the type of tool. And that's statistical tool that you want to solve the problem. Now, process of research design. The research design process is a systematic and structured approach to conducting research. The process is essential to ensure that the study is valid, viable, and produces meaningful results. So the following are some of the processes of research design. One, consider your aims. You consider your aim and approaches. When you look at your aim, you specify some objectives, then you look at the approaches that you are going to do. That's why I said determine the research question and objectives and identify the theoretical framework and method. That's number one. We're looking at the process of research design now. So two, you choose a type of research design. Here you select the appropriate research design such as experimental, collaborational, survey, case study, or ethnographic based on the research questions and objects. So the type of research design that you choose here will, whether you are using experimental, collaborational, survey, or ethnographic based research. Three, you identify your population and sampling method. So determine the target population and is very important. You have to determine the population and the size sample you are considering. Very, very important. And choose the sampling method, such as all these random size, random sampling, and convenience sampling method. We're coming to that shortly. Then next, you choose your data collection method. Decide on the data collection methods such as survey, interviews, observation, or experiment, and select appropriate instrument or tool for collecting the data. So plan your data collection procedure. You have to plan your data collection procedure. Develop a plan for data collection, including the time frame, the location, and the personnel involved. The personnel involved now, we often call them research assistants. We often call them research assistants, those that will be helping you on the field collecting data, doing some other experimental works that you may give to them and ensure ethical consideration. 6, decide on your data analysis pattern. Select the appropriate data analysis techniques such as statistical analysis, content analysis, or discourse analysis, and plan how to interpret the results. The process of research design is a critical step in conducting research. By following the steps of research design, researchers can ensure that their study is well planned, ethical, and rigorous. Don't just carry haphazard research. The research thorough. Now, research design elements. Impactful research usually creates a minimum bias in data and increases trust in the accuracy of data collected. A design that produces a slightest margin of error in experimental design is generally considered the desired outcome. The essential elements are, the research design elements are: one, accurate purpose statement. The purpose of your research, the statement must be accurate. It must not be ambiguous. It has to be straightforward. That's why I said accurate purpose statement. Two, you have techniques to be implemented for collecting and analyzing. The method applied for analyzing collected details. That method is very, very important. If your sample size small, you have a small sample size, there's a statistical technique you will use. You deploy the required T test. And if it is for large sample, use a particular T test for the analysis. You don't just deploy methods. If you are measuring performance between one class to other, you don't just want to carry a different analysis or this come and deploy. You use the required regression analysis to deploy them, carry out such analysis. For the type of research methodology important. 5, probable objections to research. Very important. Settings for the research study. Very, very important. The timeline you are conducting the research should be specified. It should not just be endless. Your research should start from this time and end to this time. Then we have measurement of analysis. So these 8 steps are the research design element that you need to know. And this research design has some characteristics. It has some characteristics. The very first one is neutrality. It has to be neutral. When you set up your study, you may have to make very reasonable assumptions about the data you expect to collect, and the results projected should be free from research bias and neutral. Understand opinions about the final evaluated scores and conclusion from multiple individuals, and consider those who agree with it. So, first, it has to be neutral. 2, it has to be reliable. With regularly conducted research, the researcher expects similar results every time. You will only be able to reach the desired results if your research you will only be able to reach the desired result if your design is reliable. If it is not reliable, you can't get a good result. So your plan should indicate how to form research questions to ensure this that. Very important. Next is validity. There are multiple measuring tools available. However, the only correct measuring tools are those which help a researcher in gauging results according to the objectives of the research. Questionnaire developed from this design will then be valid. When you develop questionnaires, you have to take it to an expert to validate. That's why when you see, like in our school here, those in College of Education, when they design their research questions, they take it to an expert, uh, especially a senior colleague in that area, to validate it. When a senior colleague validates it, he has the experience. He has been doing that routinely. He will validate your research. So generalization. The outcome of your design should apply to a population and not just a example. The outcome of your design not be restricted to a particular zone, maybe zone A of Benue State. The design should be in such a way that if you are looking at Benue, you should cover the whole Benue, not be restricted to a particular sample of the population. Be able to generalize. So a generalized method implies that your work can be conducted on any part of a population with similar. So when you are conducting a research, by the time I'm looking at the three zones in Benue State, if I take a sample in zone E, a sample in zone B, a sample in zone C, the result of this sample analysis, I should be able to generalize it to the entire population at the end of it. And that is why even the sample you are considering should be reasonable. You don't just go to a particular community and just pick one or two samples and start the analysis. No. If I'm going to zone, if I want to pick sample, I'll get two persons from Adok, get two persons from Ogbadivo, I'll get two persons from Agatu, get two persons from Oju, I'll get two persons from each of the local governments. At the end of the day, I should be able to analyze what is happening. Not that the 12 persons I'm selecting, see, I'll just go to Otukpo and just stand in the market square and get 12 persons. At the end of the day, generalize my research in the whole of Zone C. That would be very, very thick generalization. I want to generalize. If I'm aiming at generalizing my research output at the end of the day, I should be able to take samples from each of the local governments in C, and at the end of the day, I'll generalize my which to generalize at the end of the day, whole population is on. So research design types. You have qualitative research design and quantitative research design. So research design types, we have qualitative research design and quantitative research design. So qualitative research design focuses on finding meanings, experiences, and reasons behind human behavior using non-numerical data, such as interviews, observation, and open-ended questions. Qualitative research design, on the other hand, focuses on measuring variables. It focuses on measuring variables and testing relationship or hypothesis using numerical data from surveys, tests, or experiments. It is more structured, often uses larger samples, and relies on statistics to analyze. When we say relies on statistics, for this regression, you deploy regression analysis, ANOVA, collaboration, perform your analysis. Now, the types of research design are better grouped as under qualitative research design, experiments, quasi-experimental, non-experimental, we have descriptive, correlational, and gradual operative. I'm going to give you the notes from our class rep. After this class is going to create a WhatsApp group specifically for only this class, so that I can send the detailed note there so that you can take your time at the end of the class. Under qualitative research design, we have case study, phenomenology, that is studies people's the life experiences. When you are studying people's experiences while they are alive, grouped under that. Then we have geography, that studies culture / behavior of a group in their natural settings. We have grounded theory, we have narrative research, we have mixed method research design, and under that we have convergent, we have planetary sequential, we have exploratory sequential, time-based design is also there. Under that we have cross-sectional, longitudinal. So your time, these are things that you easily go through the notes very, very closely. Next, uh, uh, sub, next subtopic we're going to be looking at the source of information. But before we go into source of information, based on what we have done so far, do you have any question? Akpan Samuel.
Sir?
Do you have any question?
No question at the moment, sir.
No, there's no mathematics here so far. And I know that there will be questions when we start mathematics. I know that this one is grammar now. No, there will be no Inusa.
It's talking about the retrogressive.
Huh?
I said, especially when we talk about the retrogressive method and how to use SPSS.
SPSS.
Yes, areas like that.
I know when we get to data analysis, using statistical tool, we'll look at some of these methods. Inusa in this class. I hope some of you are not the type that you just on your Zoom and just go and be doing your own thing. In fact, I know how to know who is in my class now. So far it's only Akpan that has responded. Mkuho Simeon.
Yes, sir. I'm here.
Alam Jonathan.
Present, sir.
Bankole Balogun. I want to take a sample. Bankole Balogun is absent. He on his Zoom and left the class. Bangu and John is not in this class too. He just on the is present. Okay, that's fine.
Yes, sir.
Miriam Ali.
Present, sir.
Okay. Who is there again? Oche Simon Ode.
Present, sir.
Okay.
I'm there, sir.
Let me catch another person who will be not here. Let me see.
I'm present too, sir.
Kato Eric. Kato Eric is
Present,
absent.
sir. Present. It's not
What is the meaning of source of information? Source of info. Olawumi Peter Blessing. They just called him. He's not in this class. They called him that. You see, they are taking attendance. So come. He has just arrived.
No, sir. I'm with you, sir. I'm online, sir.
Blessing Peter
Olawumi. Me too.
Yes,
I'm
sir.
online, sir.
Yes, sir. I'm with you, sir.
Sir, even I'm online, sir.
Sir just on his Zoom and left.
No, I didn't on left. Even when you call the first person, I'm on. I didn't left.
Because they say it's online, you just on it. Let him be teaching there. Let me be doing my own thing first.
No, sir.
No, sir.
When you talk,
You, sir.
Okay, that's fine.
Yes, sir.
yes.
So let's continue. So next we have what we call source of information. And by definition, this refers to the origin or provider of information that can be accessed or used by individuals. And it can be a person, a document, a system, or any other entity that supplies the information. So the originator of who is pricing something, Okusa Denongo, pricing something in
Present,
this
sir.
class.
Sorry, sir. Sorry. I'll
So,
mute myself.
so the originator of an information is called the source of information. The person that provides that origin information from the first instance, the originator of an information is the origin, is the source of information. So that's why I said source of information refers to the origin, provider information that can be accessed or used by individuals. If, for example, President Bola Tinubu told me as a person, just called me online, that he's going to give all students offering ENS 707 course 50,000 naira, and I break the news here. I'm the originator of that information. So I'm the source of information. If somebody asks you, "Hey, who is the source? Who brought that information? Where is the source of that information coming from?" You say it's coming from Dr. Titi Ashizo. I'm the information, and I'm the source. Now, information sources. Information sources. Information sources. Understanding the different sources of information in organization is crucial for effective decision making and research. These sources can be categorized into primary, secondary, and tertiary, each playing a distinct role in providing information. One, the primary source of information. Primary sources are first hand. Please, you need to know the difference between these sorts of information. Primary sources, secondary sources, tertiary source. I know how to explain them. Primary source are first-hand pieces of evidence or original materials that provide direct insight into a particular event, phenomena, or topic. Examples include internal documents, survey, questionnaires, interview, and focus group observation. You know, when you carry out a survey, you carry out a one-on-one interview. Whatever information you are asking, determining your research, if whatever that person tells you directly, one-on-one, that becomes your primary source of information. So, all this focus group interview that you carry out, observation that you go to, what do they call it now? Animal farm to carry out your observation based on the weights of animals, based on their particular traits that they are putting forward as the day passes by, is a primary source of information. Now, secondary sources. Secondary sources interpret, analyze, or summarize information derived from primary sources. They provide a broader perspective and often involve a degree of synthesis. Examples include published reports, news and media and books, databases and archives and journals. So any information you are reading from all these daily times, they are secondary sources of information because the the writer must have got the information from a primary source, then he's coming to, you know, uh, publish it in a bulletin, in a paper, So once you read it from there, these are secondary sources of information. They are not primary sources. Because primary sources are the source of information you get direct, first hand. And secondary sources, all this print media information you get from the print media are secondary sources of information. Then we have tertiary sources. Tertiary sources compile and distill information from primary and secondary sources, providing a comprehensive overview suitable for quick reference. Now, tertiary sources combine primary and secondary, a tertiary source of information. So we have what we call samples and sampling techniques. Sample and sampling techniques. A sample, you need to know the difference. You need to know the difference between a sample, samples, and sampling techniques. So a sample is a subset of individuals from a larger population. I give you an instance to drive my point home. If, for example, at the Department of Environmental Sustainability, let's say we have 400 students, and I choose like 15 or 20 students to carry out a small research with. That is a sample out of the 400. The larger population is the 400. Then that 15 persons or 20 persons that I'm choosing, 400 persons, is a sample of that population. I hope it's clear. A sample of that population. Now, sampling means selecting the group that you will actually collect data from in your research. For example, if you are researching the opinions of students in your university, you will survey a sample of 100 students. You will survey a sample of 100 students out of the population you are looking at. So when you choose a small population from a larger population, that is a sample of that population. You are taking a sample of that population to perform your research. So sampling method. When you conduct research about a group of people, it is rarely possible to collect data from every person in that group. Instead, you select a sample. When you want to conduct a research for the entire Benue State, it's not possible. You just get a sample, a population from zone B, zone C, and conduct your research. That's why I said when you conduct research about a group of people, it's rarely possible to collect. It's not possible to collect data from every person in that group. Instead, you collect a sample. The sample is the group of individuals who will actually participate in the research. Now, to draw valid conclusion from your results, you have to carefully decide how you will select a sample that is representative of the group. Just like I told you, if you are asked to conduct a research in zone C and you go to just Otopo local government, maybe the whole of zone C, I want to look at 12 persons. And you now go to only Otopo. Just in a particular market square, you just select 12 persons. It's not a representative of the whole zone. If you want to have a fair representative of the whole zone, what you need to do is you take 2 persons from Otopo, 2 persons from Apa, 2 persons from Agatu, 2 persons from Oju, 2 persons from Ohimi. You take 2 persons from Ogbo. When you take 2 to now, you have a fair representation of the entire zone C. So the research you carry out, the result will be reasonable at the end of the day than you just sitting in selecting 12 persons. To draw valid conclusions from your results, you have to carefully decide how you will select a sample that is representative of the group as a whole. This is called sampling method. There are two primary types of sampling methods that you can use in your research. You have probability sampling and non-probability sampling. Now, probability sampling involves random selection. Probability sampling involves random selection, allowing you to make strong statistical inferences about the whole group. Non-probability sampling involves non-random selection based on convenience, other criteria, allowing you to easily collect. So basically, under sampling methods, have for probability sampling and non-probability sampling. So you should clearly explain how you collected your sample in the methodology section of your paper or thesis, as well as how you approached minimizing research bias in your work. Now, population versus sample. Now, this is an entire population. In this place, the moment you how many persons do you have in the first row here? You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So if I choose these guys in blue, it's a sample of the whole population. If I choose these guys in blue, it's a sample of the whole population. So by the whole of this are the entire population, but the samples are considered in blue sample of the entire population. So the population is the entire group that you want to draw conclusion about, while the sample is a specific group of individuals that you will collect data from. So the population can be defined in terms of geographical location, age, income, any other characteristics. So now this is an entire population. This is a sample. So this is the entire population. You're just taking a sample of the entire population to conduct your research. I hope you can see the difference between a sample and population here.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, we can see.
So this is a population,
Yes, sir.
this is a sample. Now, sample size. The number of individuals you should include in your sample depends on various factors, including the size and variability of the population and your research. There are different sample size calculators and formulas depending on what you want to achieve with statistical analysis. So it depends on what you want. You make the appropriate choices and proceed there. Probability sampling method. Probability sampling means that every member of the population has a chance of being selected. Probability sampling means that every member of the population has a chance of being selected. It is mainly used in quantitative research. If you want to produce results that are representative of the whole population, probability sampling techniques are the most valid choice to make. And under these probability sampling techniques, we have 4 types of probability sample. One, we have simple random sample, we have systematic sample, and these are the examples. We have stratified, sample, we have cluster sample, and the under stratified, you can see here amongst these three, one person is choosing, here one person is choosing, here one person is choosing, and here two persons choosing. That's stratified. Note this difference closely. You see here, this person is choosing, this person is choosing, and the last person is choosing. Here, first person is choosing, and the third person is choosing. The fourth, fifth, and the last persons are not choosing. So we call this simple random sample. Here we have systematic sample. See the way they have been chosen. So this is systematic in nature. Then stratified. Here you choose one person, here you choose one person, here you choose one person, here is two persons. So this approach is stratified. And because here you are choosing as a group, so we call it cluster sampling. So here we choose under this first row, we choose the second group, and here we choose the first group for cluster sampling. Now, under simple random sampling, in a simple random sample, every member of the population has an equal chance of being selected. Your sampling frame should include whole population. To conduct this type of sampling, you can use tools like random number generators or that technique that are based entirely on chance. Now, as an example, simple random sampling. You want to select simple random sample of 100 employees, a social media marketing company. You assign a number to every employee in the company database from 1 town and use a random number generator to select 100. Write a simple computer program, generate this 100 persons of the 1,000 in the company. Systematic sampling. Under systematic sampling is similar. Systematic sampling is similar to simple random sampling, but it is usually slightly easier to conduct. Every member of the population is listed with a number, and but instead of randomly generating numbers, individuals are choosing intervals. An example, we have systematic sampling here. All employees of the company are listed in alphabetical order. That is from the first 10 number. Randomly select starting point. Number 6. From number 6 onwards, every 10 persons on the list, select 6, 10, 26, 36, 46, and so on. And you end up with sample of 100 persons. In this case, you want to get the 100 persons, you just say 6, 60, 46, 46, 56, 66, 76, 86, 96. You select the first 10 persons. Now, stratified sampling. Under stratified sampling involves dividing the population into sub-populations that may differ in important ways. It allows you to draw more precise conclusions by ensuring that every subgroup is properly represented in the sample. So to use this sampling method, you divide a population into subgroups, and those subgroups will call them strata based on the relevant characteristics. For example, gender identity, that is whether you're a male or female, your age range, maybe people between 10 to 20 years, 20 to 30, 40 to 50, 50 to 60 years old, income bracket, and those that are collecting salary between 30,000 to 40,000, and those that are collecting salary between 50,000 to 60,000, those that are collecting salary from 70,000 to 80,000. Their job role also. So, based on the overall proportion of the population, you calculate how many people should be sampled from each subgroup. Then you use random or systematic sampling to select a sample from each subgroup. Next, we have stratified sampling. As an example, that one, if the company has 800 female employees and 200 male employees, you want to ensure that the sample reflects the gender balance company. So you sort the population into two strata based on gender. Then you use random sampling on each group, selecting 80 women and 20 men, which gives you a representative of the entire 100 people. The last but not the least is the cluster sampling. Cluster sampling also involves dividing the population into groups. In this case, you don't divide into individuals, you divide into groups. But each subgroup should have similar characteristics to the whole sample. Instead of sampling individuals from each subgroup, you randomly select entire group, just like I was showing you in the cluster chart. They were grouped into 4 places. So you select the first row, one group was selected, and the second row, another group was selected. So when you do that, this is called multi-stage sampling. And as an example of cluster sampling, the company has offices in 10 across the country, employees in similar roles collect your data. So these are your cluster and interpret the data so that the end users can make meaning out of your analysis. So under non-probability sampling methods, in a non-probability sample, individuals are selected based on random criteria, and not every individual has a chance of being included. So this type of sample is easier and cheaper to assess, but it has a higher risk of sampling bias. That means the inferences you can make about the population are weaker than with probability samples, and your conclusions may be more limited. If you use a non-probability sample, you should still aim to make it as representative of the population as possible. So under non-probability sampling techniques, non-probability sampling techniques are often used in exploratory and qualitative research. In these types of research, the aim is not to test a hypothesis about a broad population, but to develop an initial understanding of a small or under-researched population. In the probability sampling technique, that's where we apply our statistical tool. Then this is the most necessary apply your statistical tools to draw conclusions. So here we have, this is convenience sample. This is the total population. You have an entire population. So you have a convenience sample. This is how to take a convenience sample. You have a purposive sample. This is how you take a sample from this entire population. And you have snowball sample. This is how you take it. Then you have quarter sample. This is how you take your quarter sample. By the time I give you the notes, look at all those things very, very clear. I don't know if you are looking at it clearly here, but when I give you the notes, you to look at this clearly to see how the samples are distinguished. Now, under convenience sampling, convenience sample simply includes individuals who happen to be most accessible to the research. They say, as the name implies, convenience sampling. If, for instance, I'm in Makodi and I want to start research, and I'm in Joseph Sanwo Taka University, the easiest place for me to start my sampling is either in the university there, or I will come to North Bank and do sampling. I'm taking this sampling at my convenience now. So that's why I said a convenience sample simply includes the individuals who happen to be the most accessible to the researcher. This is an easy and inexpensive way to gather initial data, but there's no way to tell if the sample is representative of the population. Yes, because you do not go far, close to the sampling your research at your level. So you cannot tell whether it's representative. It's not representative of the entire population. So it can't produce generalizable result because you just people from Agri, you came to North Bank, you took a sample. And you're looking at Makodi local government. If you want to take a very reasonable sampling technique, you have to use Agri, you use North Bank, high level, you use Wadata, you use welfare quarters, you use people around the Yaki. So when you do that, it will be representative of the entire population. Convenience samples are at risk for both sampling bias and selection bias, because you cannot generalize such a result because you just took your sample just in Joseph Sanwo Taka University and North Bank. You do not go around to take your sample, so you cannot generalize. As an example, you are researching opinions about students. You are researching opinion about student support services in your university. So after each of your class, you ask your fellow students to complete a survey on the topic. This is a convenient way to gather data. But as you only surveyed students taking the same class as you at the same level. The sample is not representative of the students in your university. Because if you are supposed to take sample from the entire university and you restrict your sampling to the class you are teaching. I give an example. If I am supposed to take sample of students in the entire university, but as I'm teaching you, I just choose to take samples from you people alone. This is convenient sampling because I know all of you. I just sat here and I just chose you people and I asked you some few questions and I'm generalizing the information for students in engineering, in civil, in mathematics, in statistics, in computer science, in management. I'm not being fair because I just chose students ENS 707, asked them few questions and I'm generalizing my. It's not of in the entire university. Students' responses at university. Voluntary response sampling is similar to ENS sample. A voluntary response sample is mainly based on ease of access. A voluntary response sample mainly based on ease of access. Instead of the researcher choosing part and directly contacting them, people share themselves, e.g., by responding to a public online survey. Voluntary response, voluntary, we call it voluntary response survey, are always at least somewhat biased. Some people will inherently be more likely to volunteer, leading to self-selection bias. Now, as an example, you send out a survey to all your university. A lot of students decide to complete it. This can certainly give you insight into the topic. But the people who responded are more likely to be those who have strong opinions about the student support services. So you can't be sure that the opinions are representative of the entire student. Purposive sampling. This type of sampling, also known as judgment sampling, involves the researcher using their expertise to select sample that is more useful to the research. That's purposive sampling. It is often used in qualitative research a lot, where the researcher wants to gain detailed knowledge about a specific phenomenon rather than making statistical inference, where the people very small and specific. An effective purposive sample must have clear criteria and rationale for inclusion. Always make sure to describe your inclusion and exclusion criteria and be aware of observer bias affecting argument. So, example of purposive sampling. If you want to know more about the opinions and experiences of disabled students at your university, so you purposefully select a number of students with different support needs in order to gather a varied range of data on their experiences with student services. So we have snowball sampling. Here, if the population is hard access, if the population is hard to access. Snowball sampling can be used to recruit participants via other participants. The number of people you have to access to snowballs as you get in contact with more people. The downside here is also representativeness, as you have no way of knowing how many representatives your sample is due to the reliance on participants recruiting others. This can lead to sampling bias. So, as an example, if you are selecting experiences of homelessness in your city, since there's no list of all homeless people, since you don't have a list of all homeless people in the city, probability sampling isn't possible. You meet one person who agrees to participate in the research, and she puts you in contact with other homeless people that she knows in the area. So under snowball sampling, you have to be careful with how you perform the sampling, because uh, here, if you don't have a list of all homeless people, you need to meet one person who is homeless to link you to the other, that you can now take all the data that you require to fit, make reasonable analysis, and draw reasonable conclusion for use. Excuse me. Now, quota sampling. Under quota sampling relies on the non-random selection of a determined number of units. This is called quota. Quota sampling relies on the non-random selection a predetermined number or of units. This is called uh, uh, sampling. Now here, you first divide the population into mutually exclusive subgroup, data, and then recruit sample units until you reach quota. These units share specific characteristics determined by prior to forming your data. The aim of quota sampling is to control who makes sample. So as an example, you want to gauge consumer interest in a new produce delivering service in Boston. Focus on dietary preference. You divide the population into meat eaters, vegetarians, and vegans, drawing a sample of 1,000 people. As the company wants to cater all consumers, you set a quota of 100 for each dietary group. In this group, all dietary preferences are equally represented in your research, and you can easily, compare this group. You continue recruiting until you reach quota of 100 participants for each sub. So this is an example of a sampling. Now, I'm going to advise that the class rep is going to create this group and this material platform. And I would advise that you go through this note religiously, because it's something, a note, if you go through, you can easily make a better meaning out of this note than even what we can imagine. So drop it on the platform. Then in the afternoon session, I encourage you to get your calculators and get your statistical tables. Afternoon session, I'm going to introduce you. We'll start playing around with figures. So get your calculator so that the soft work you can be performing as the classes are going on, or even later after the class, and sit down and sit down and do what I have taught to make moving meaning. That's my advice. Take your time, go through all the calculations that I'm going to solve in the afternoon. So we're having a class by 1. So I encourage you to get your calculators ready afternoon class so that all the examples that we're going to confirm that everything is correct. And where there's need be, you ask your. I'm going to be giving you more exercises. I'll give you enough exercises. I'll just quickly, from what we'll solve in the class, I'll just quickly draw an exercise, maybe assignment, and post it on the platform. Then you people will do. I'll get the feedback. When we enter the class, I will ask you answer, explain how you got it. So that's that. Any question?
No, sir.
Miriam,
Yes,
Ali,
sir. Yes, sir.
no question. No question. How
No.
about Denongo? Let me take my small attendance.
Good morning, sir.
Yes, sir. No question for now.
Okay, that's fine.
Thank you.
Abu Livinus, Tenenge. Where's Livinus?
I'm here, sir. I'm here.
No question, sir.
Let me see your face, Abu Livinus.
Okay, my face. Okay, let me put on.
Why he's doing that? Agatha, Chukuma.
Yes, sir. Present, sir.
Okay.
No questions, sir.
Patience, Anefu.
Yes, sir. Good morning, sir. No question, sir.
Akasi. Okay. Oche, Simon.
Okay, present, sir. I'm here.
Olawoni. Peter Blessing. Olawoni on his Zoom and just left. So let's see who is chatting there.
Hello,
Okay.
sir. I'm here, sir.
It's okay. So see you guys in the afternoon, right?
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Sir, thank you, sir.
Okay.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning. So we'll see in the afternoon.
Okay, sir.
There is something I would like to ask.